Hubie, your excellent reading of the Aseret Dibrot, the 10 words this morning, has reminded us of their centrality, influence, and importance in a society that values the dignity and preciousness of all life, a society which is underpinned by morality, justice, and truth. Your thoughtful interpretation explain that these 10 words, as they're called in Hebrew, are not to be considered as individual commandments, but rather as headlines, categories of law. If you take every other commandment in Judaism, you can classify each one according to these 10 broad categories, the lottery, as you called it, that govern our relationship with God and with other human beings, whether the details of Shabbat and festival observance, which fall under the commandment of remember the Sabbath day, or the specific laws that govern the honor of parents, to give just 2 examples. But let me begin with a story told in a sermon by the late Rabbi Harold Saperstein, who for 47 years was the rabbi of Temple Emmanuel in Lynbrook, New York. He relates this tale in 1975, about the time that computer scientists were laying the groundwork for the development of what we now call artificial intelligence. A group of nations, he said, concerned about an impending catastrophe that could wipe out our total civilization, decided to pool their intellectual resources to see how such a tragedy could be prevented. They gathered the greatest minds in every field of human endeavor. For many days, they shared their wisdom as it referred to the destiny of humankind and human relations. All of it was programmed into the most advanced computer existing in the world. When at last they were done, the computer was asked, on what basis can the world endure? The giant machine whirred for a second, and then it spelt out the answer. I am the eternal one, your God. You shall have no other gods before me. The 10 Commandments. Rabbi Saperstein lived through the most turbulent decades of the 20th century. He served in the US Army in Europe and was stationed in Munich as the war came to an end. On May the 15th, 1945, he entered the concentration camp Dachau and wrote in a letter on the same day, no description in words could exaggerate or even compare with the sheer horror and gruesomeness of the reality. The heart of everyone who sees it fills with terrible anger at the hideous efficiency and unbelievable inhumanity of the Nazi beast. When he returned to his pulpit at the end of the war, he wrote in another letter how desperate he felt, trying to find inspiration for his sermons to his congregations each Shabbat and each holy day. And yet, in a book of his sermons edited by his son, Rabbi Professor Mark Saperstein, it is clear that his preaching on the vital issues of his day must have touched and affected his congregation: Zionism and the birth of the State of Israel, the plight of Soviet Jewry, the civil rights movement and the Vietnam War, the assassinations of President Kennedy and Martin Luther King. These were the subjects he raised during his long rabbinate. Reading some of his sermons, I wondered what he would have said about the issues of our own day. How would he have responded to the global instability that is shaking the foundations of the free, democratic world? What would he have said about the entrenched conflicts and geopolitical rivalries that persist in parts of the world, sometimes with little possibility of resolution, to endemic poverty and inequalities, to catastrophic levels of global warming and the consequences for our planet. He would undoubtedly have spoken out against the repression, persecution, and slaughter of Iranian protesters, and stood up to be counted with those brave enough to demonstrate. Like many scholars, rabbis, and writers of today, he would inevitably have responded to the catastrophe of October the 7th and the devastating war between Israel and Hamas that ensued. He believed that a Jewish state had something unique in its heritage, that it shouldn't try to be like every other nation, but true to its Jewishness. He wanted Israel to make itself the fearless advocate for international justice, to take a forthright stand on every issue, to be a spiritual pioneer among the nations, because the text line and religious culture of Judaism in the past had followed a creative and moral path. He believed that a Jewish state would find a way to bring something new into the world. Israel's detractors might scoff at such words today in the aftermath of the war in Gaza and the appalling violence that erupts daily on the West Bank, the building of new illegal settlements beyond the Green Line. But I believe that while he would have acknowledged the enormous difficulties of creating a peace plan between Israel and the Palestinians, Rabbi Saperstein would have said that although we would not wish to start from this point, it should not prevent Israel from finding a new way to move forward based on the principles and values on which Judaism is built. And that brings us back to the Ten Commandments and that giant ancient computer that word together all the great minds in search of some solution to the sustainability and endurance of the world in the face of impending catastrophe. The machine did not produce a roadmap for peace, nor an outline of plans to address global warming. It didn't even spew out dollar bills to address the issues of poverty, disease, and lack of education in the developing world. It produced the 10 words, the 10 utterances, which begin not with a commandment, but with a statement. I am the Eternal One, your God, who brought you out of the land of Egypt, out of the house of slavery. This first statement, first word, cries out for an interpretation. What does it mean? What is it requiring of us? It is clear that murder, adultery, and stealing are morally wrong, harming the dignity and infinite value of humanity. But I am the Eternal One, your God, is a statement about divine existence. It's about the complexities and dynamics of our personal faith. This first commandment is what provides the indissoluble connection between faith and morality. It is the very basis and foundation of all the other commandments and teachings in our tradition. Hubie, you expressed your own faith very beautifully in your Devar Torah when you said that your faith is a relationship, a connection that has only just begun, and that you don't know where it will lead. In these opening words of your parashah, God is speaking to each one of us. I am the Eternal One, your God. You're in the singular, Elohecha, not in the plural. These words, says Rabbi Jonathan Wittenberg, take us far beyond the understanding of the first of the 10 Commandments as a statement of religious dogma. Rather, he writes, it is the truth at the heart of all life. Whoever I am, in whatever way I frame my identity, Jew, continental, American, Russian, gardener, teacher, parent, teen, there is a deeper reality to me. God speaks to us, says Rabbi Wittenberg, not just down from Mount Sinai, but upwards from the depths of all being. Faith in a transcendent or immanent being is something that is beyond our own conception and reflects a truth about ourselves. Faith has the capacity to remove from us the indulgence of selfishness, of always thinking that life must be centered on ourselves. A moral God, capable of bringing the Israelites out of Egypt, redeeming them from slavery, imposes upon us, whether we believe that or not, an obligation to rejoice in our own freedom, but to remember the rest of humanity. You were slaves in Egypt, says God, but there are people in the world who are downtrodden, scapegoated, impoverished, homeless and hungry, refugees, asylum seekers, enslaved, trafficked, children and women in sweatshops or working in other unmentionable places. In these opening words of your parashah, Hubi, we are called to find ways to resist and eliminate the chaos, brutality, oppression, and violence in the world. In these last months, as you prepared with Dov to read from the Torah and lead the service last night, you chose a Hebrew name for yourself, Malachi. Like Isaiah of our Haftarah, Malachi was a prophet, in fact, the last prophet of the Hebrew Bible. His name means my messenger, God's messenger. And I think your choice of name is highly appropriate because you are, in a sense, God's messenger. You are intelligent. You work hard on those subjects that engage you. You are particularly interested in history, in strategy games that are relevant to our own Jewish history of standing up against oppression. And without wanting to embarrass you, Hubi, I was struck by the way that your mum described you this week. Lana, you said that Hubi is like a leader who seeks no followers, that he is determined, curious, passionate, kind, emotionally intelligent, generous, and loving. You have all the qualities to be God's messenger, qualities that are going to take you on that journey of discovery about our faith, our tradition, its teachings and culture, all those aspects of Judaism that manage to adapt themselves to contemporary life. May your life be enriched by your Judaism, and may you find in yourself and in partnership with others the strength and faith to help create a new world of stability, respect, truth, and justice, a world that honors the words, I am the Eternal One, your God, who brought you out of the land of Egypt, out of the house of slavery.